From the crack of dawn to the campfire at night. Whether you're in the woods, on the water, or just dreaming about your next adventure, you're in the right place. This is Tailgate Outdoors.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tailgate Outdoors. As we are in the middle of August already, a month away from bow season, if you can believe it or not. We've got the antlerless tags coming up for sale in just a couple days, so good reminder, maybe set the alarm on your cell phones for when they go on sale so you can get in line online to make sure you get some of those antlerless tags and such. But may not feel like summer is kind of coming to an end here, but it's getting there, and it's getting to be hunting season. I don't know about the rest of you, but when the calendar flips to August, that's when I start to feel a little bit more like bow season and hunting season coming up here, and it's a perfect time to catch up with our good buddy, Mr. Tim Kaiser from Whitetail Partners. How you doing, bud? Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
What about, when does it kind of kick into gear for you on that calendar when we get to closer to bow season? For me, I don't know why it's August.
No, I hear you. August for sure. The kids start getting ready for going back to school.
Yep.
Right. Football camp is open.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you go, gosh, it's going to be fall. It's going to be hunting season before we know it.
Although the Brewers are trying to extend summer here a little bit with the way they're playing, which that's okay too.
So much fun.
Right?
Yeah.
Man, it's we were talking a little bit off the air about what we've seen for the Brewers, because we're the same age generation and such. It's just we haven't gone through this too much.
Nope. Gotta enjoy it.
Exactly. So I wouldn't mind if, I'm sitting in a stand and then trying to follow along to some late September, October Brewers games.
There we go.
Follow
we haven't had a
the
chance
phone.
to do that much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So, well, kind of a cool looking ahead to what we're going to be talking about here a little bit later on. We're going to be answering some questions from you, the listener. So a big thanks to some of the listeners who sent over questions for Tim. Actually had quite a few. I only selected a few, so I'm saving some for the next, because they kind of involve a little bit later on in the season and such. So we're going to be doing that. But if you are listening right now and you're like, hey, I would love to ask Tim a question, just reach out to us and let us know. All right, hit us up with an email. Get a hold of Tim on his Facebook page, our Facebook page, and then we'll ask that, because I'm sure there's probably somebody else that has the same question out there. So we got a few of those questions lined up here, but we're going to lead off, since it is August, a little tree stand. Or first of all, before we get to that, what have you been doing lately? Kind of getting set up. I know last time we talked about July, it is hot, but it's still time to try to maybe get out there and do some things in the woods. So what have you been doing in the woods lately?
Yeah, food plots.
Food plots.
Just got all my fall plots in Friday. We had rain coming Saturday, and so I always like to time it up if I can to get those plots in the day before the rain came, and it was perfect.
Perfect
timing. It was a hot day, but it was
Yeah.
worth it. We got it in and got a bunch of rain Saturday, and already starting to see some green coming up. So, yeah.
Mind if I ask, what did you plant?
Yeah, bunch of different stuff.
Okay.
My main plot, what I typically like to do and what I suggest to a lot of my clients is to break that in half for those fall plots, and half of that will be your classic brassicas with some turnips and radishes. A lot of guys like to plant those. And then the other half, I do a mix of winter peas, winter wheat, and then soybeans.
Okay.
Yeah. But then also a couple of smaller plots. I put in some alfalfa, some clover, some of those things as well.
Does it factor in, like, and I apologize if this kind of sounds stupid or that, but like native stuff when it's Wisconsin, is that a thing when it comes to food plots?
It can be.
Deer? Okay.
Yeah. Certainly can be. I haven't gotten a lot into a lot of the native browse other than just trying to improve the habitat for that.
Right.
But, in this scope, it was really looking at those specific fall planting food plots, trying to get some stuff down besides just your egg crops that are going to be out there.
Have you ever, like, and I don't know, maybe this is something with when you work with clients and such, but like apple trees, plant those and stuff like that. Is that something that you guys factor in, or you factor in with your areas?
Put those in a lot of my designs.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a great something we can talk about a little later. I think one of the questions we can hit that up. But yeah, those soft mash trees can be fantastic food sources for deer.
It's a little bit more of a long-term investment, right? Just because it might take a couple more few years to get a crop out of those and such. So.
Yeah, I planted some apple trees that were 5 or 6 feet tall last year. They're probably 8 or 9 feet tall now, and they still haven't produced any apples. So it's going to take a couple more years, but well worth it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll hit that up coming up in one of the questions. Kind of the same for me. Putting the cameras out, checking the cameras a little bit more.
You got anything on camera yet?
A little bit. Nothing big. A lot of fawns running around there. Bear's messing with the cameras. Always over there. So thanks, Smokey. But and thanks to the locks on there and the protection case on my Tacticams. So, but yeah, a lot of fawns on mine right now.
Sure. Well, and depending on where you have your cameras, that's not the end of the world. If you have your cameras in some areas that are a little thicker, sometimes this time of year, you're going to have some of those bucks with their antlers still in velvet. They're going to avoid some of those thick, dense areas that are hot and buggy. They're going to stick more to those field edges and some of the open, breezier areas. So it's not alarm bells if you're not seeing them yet. And you still kind of have that fall shift that's going to take place. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks, you see some bucks move in.
Yeah, I'm glad because I was actually going to ask you, if I wanted to try to get more bucks on my camera and such, is there certain areas of my property that I should look at? And because I'm going to move it this weekend, and one of them I was thinking about putting it on the kind of a field edge, a little bit.
Yeah, and that's a great place to put them this time of year. It can help educate you a little bit, not only on what kind of deer are around, but also maybe there's a chance we can get a stand set up there for an early season hunt.
Right, exactly. Speaking of stands too, some tree stand, maybe some early season tips.
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten them up, or you better be getting out there and putting them up, right?
Yep. Full disclosure, I'm going to put up some today.
Okay.
Right after this, I'm headed up to get a couple last minute stands up that I didn't have put up yet. But I know that was a big thing we wanted to talk about today is when you're putting those stands up, how to set them up, some different ideas of maybe what to consider, right? And I get that question a lot from clients. And so I think the first thing to always consider, and it sounds kind of boring, but you always consider safety. And so if you're putting up new stands or it's stands that have been up from years past, it's always first, make sure that they're safe. So checking straps, always wearing that harness. Do you wear a harness in the stand?
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
What about lifelines? Have you looked into those at all?
I've heard about. I have not used them though.
Yeah. So that's a big one. I'd suggest people to go out and look.
Okay.
And there's a few different brands of them, but essentially what it is you're tying on a rope to the top of the tree, runs all the way down to the bottom, and you clip your harness into that before you ever step onto the ladder.
Okay.
And that's cool. I actually I did a consult for an ER doc this last year. Really great guy. And we were talking a little bit about tree stand injuries, and he said more of them happen when you're stepping from the ladder to the stand than just when you're sitting in the stand. So that lifeline really gives you that extra sense of security.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So what about because you see these stands, if people are buying them, there's so many different height variations, right? I mean, I've seen platform ones maybe are just 6 feet off the ground. You can go all the way up to 20 feet. Yep. Is that a big factor in placing stands, and why is it such a big factor in placing stands?
Yeah. I think height of the stand is really important. Super general rule of thumb from me is if there's a lot of thick cover around you on the ground, I'm able to and I'm willing to go a little lower to kind of stay right at the level of that cover. Now, if you're in a very open forest setting, maybe you're in some pine rows or something, that's where I'm going to try to get up 20, 25 feet because I want to get out of the sight line of the deer. So to me, I think a lot about sight line because that can also play into, hey, are we on a hill? Are they walking up a hill? Their sight line's naturally going to be a little higher, so maybe we need to get a little higher, right? So there's little things like that with height, but also think about the tree you're in. Where's the cover in that tree? If there's a lot of back cover, if you're in a nice oak tree with some leaves that are going to be there in October and November, I don't mind staying a little lower if that means that I'm not going to be silhouetted behind me. Right.
Yeah, because so it kind of depends on where you want to put the stand, it sounds like, for the height, right?
Absolutely.
With that cover and such.
Yep, you're exactly right.
So that's always one of my things, too. I swear I say it every year. I'm never putting up another stand. I get a little nervous putting it up, right?
Yeah.
You're climbing up there.
Yeah.
I've got it ratchet strapped, so it's not, remember back in the day, all you had was just one person holding on the ladder, and you're trying to go up 20 feet, and you're shaking a little bit there. So I still get nerves putting it up there and such, too. But do you have any good secret tips for safety putting them up there? I just make sure I secure it, helmet, ratchet strap it a few times before I go all the way up there. So.
Yep, yeah, ratchet straps, and trying to replace those every year too.
Yeah.
I personally don't leave any stands out over the winter because I just get nervous about the ice and the sun really making those straps brittle.
Yep.
So I'll leave my sticks out from time to time because they're not carrying so much weight when you're actually sitting in the stand. But the stands themselves I take down every year, and I recommend that to everybody. I know it's a little more work, but it keeps it a lot safer.
I was going to say the health and life and safety is a little bit more important, right?
You got kids now. You look at it a little different than we were 25, right?
Yep, definitely. So we kind of touched a little bit on placement in terms of the height and such, but like when so you're putting up stands right now.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are September, October, it's going to look a lot different with leaf fall off,
Yeah.
right? With all the leaves falling off and such. So when you look at where to place your stands, what are some of the areas that you kind of focus on right away, maybe early on, and how much do you factor in? You kind of touched on a little bit with the cover and such, but
Yeah.
it does look a lot different. And once it rolls around September, 1 week can make a complete difference with all those leaves falling off.
Yeah, there's times this time of year when you put up a stand and you think you're just all brushed in and nothing's going to be able to see you, and then you get there mid-October for the first day that you've sat there and you go realize you're sticking out like a sore thumb.
Right.
So it doesn't help you now, but I will say the first tip I have is the best time to put up stands is actually in the spring before those leaves start to bloom.
Okay.
Because then you're going to know exactly what it's going to look like come fall.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best way to do it. But like I said, I'm doing the opposite today. I'm putting up stands now. So when you're doing that, just be aware of what trees are there and knowing really most of those are not going to be holding their leaves for a long time. So kind of try to envision it without those leaves. And really focus on, what I focus on is eliminating my silhouette. So am I in a big enough tree to kind of cover my back? Or are there other trees just in front of me or behind me that are going to kind of break up that silhouette? But that's really what I focus on because that foliage is going to be gone.
Mm-hmm. Do you have stands that are specifically maybe for early season, focusing on early season, and then maybe stands like, okay, this is for the rut, or maybe like a post rut? Do you factor that into some of your stand locations?
Yeah, 100%. And some of those are based on where they're located, right? Typically, and I think we're going to talk about it more, but you think of early season right on food sources, and then as the season goes on, getting in some more of those travel routes, things like that. But as you own a property, and you probably know too, it seems like, hey, this is the stand that's hot this time of year, and then this is the stand I like to sit in later on, or again there too with rifle stands versus bow stands, that can be a difference. But yeah, I like to have stands set up in different places throughout the year, not only to kind of adjust as the deer change their patterns, but also so I'm not burning out a stand and sitting there every time I'm in the woods.
Right. So there's a lot of different types of stands out there. I mean, long gone are the days of where we had to build the wooden ones. I still love walking through the woods and coming upon a couple boards in a tree and just wondering, what's that story?
Yes.
I love that nostalgia and that history of it. They've come a long way. I mean, you're probably like me. When we were kids, the first stands we sat in were the wooden built stands. Now you've got these big platforms, climbers, hang-ons. I mean, ladder stands. They're all over the place here. I mean, there's so many different options. When it comes for you, or maybe just for a general person, do you have any recommendations? Is it a lot of it based off comfort? Because let's be honest, bigger ones probably a little bit more comfortable to move around in and such. But then you got the small ones that are a little bit more easy for portable. My wife was asking me about one because one of her coworkers was showing her and asking her if I ever use it. It's like a backpack that turned into a climbing stand, for crying out loud.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I'm like, I've never seen that before. Yeah. It was a few $100, but I'm intrigued with that. But it's just so crazy to think about. Remember the Lounger too? This big climber. I remember having the video of watching that
DVD.
thing.
That's such a good callback. Wow.
Right?
A lot of people have no idea what we're talking about
exactly,
right now, but that's a classic.
Exactly. I mean, literally, the guy's like laying back in his tree stand and such, and demonstrating it on a steel pole, sort of thing. So, what do you look for when you're looking at stands and maybe looking at getting a new one and such?
Yeah, it's like you said, there's such a spectrum out there, and there's huge advantages and limitations to a lot of those different types of stands. To me, it's all about what is going to keep you in the tree the longest, because at the end of the day, if you're staying in the tree longer, your chances go up. So if it's hey, I really want this new stand, maybe it's a little more money, but it's very comfortable versus going something cheap and you're wanting to get out of the woods after an hour. Yeah, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Because I like to do my all-day bow hunts.
Yeah.
Sit all day. There's a couple days of the year I'll take off work and just sunrise, sunset, sit out there. And I want to be comfortable, but I want to be in a good spot too, obviously, if you're going to be dedicating that time.
Yeah, you got to find that balance, right? And I think there's a lot of great ladder stands out there that if you're uncomfortable with a climber or with a hang-on stand, that you can find that comfort level, but still get up in the tree far enough to feel like you're in a good spot. So, just find something you can put the hours into, and that's what you should stick with.
Right. I know something you've talked about in our conversations quite a bit about, and I know you consult with clients in that too. And this is something I'm probably one of my biggest violations, or whatever you want to call it, is access routes. You know, getting to the stand. I know a lot of us probably just want the easiest, quickest route to get to our stand, you know, whether it's, you know, just walking through, plunging through off of a four-wheeler trail, logging road, or something like that. But your access routes, just kind of talking to you for, you know, our few times that we've done this, it's something that I think maybe a lot of hunters probably don't factor in getting to the stand, and that how that affects maybe whether they're going to see a deer or possibly get a deer a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're spot on. If and I may have said this before, but I'll say it again. If I came to where you hunted and I did nothing else and gave you no other information, no other, you know, ideas for how you could change it, if I just cleaned up your access, I'm 100% sure you'd see more deer the next year. It's that simple. And a lot of people do overlook it. And, you know, we all get guilty of, like you said, trying to take the closest route, or, hey, I'm just going to jump on the four-wheeler and drive because it's easier. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking to make a quick improvement and you're looking to up your odds, this is probably the easiest thing to do. And it's the way I look at it is if you have a good stand, but there's poor access, you don't have a good stand. You got to be able to get into it without alerting deer, and that's on the way in visually. They don't see you, but also where's your wind blowing as you try to get to that stand, and are able to get in quietly. Those are all really important factors.
With stand locations and such here too, before we get to some listener questions, how much? So let me just give you a specific example. Would you put a stand in like a bedding area, or close to a bedding area? Or because I've seen you go on the forums, right? You go on the chat rooms and see what other people are saying. Some people are like, well, yeah, you know, as long as you have a good access route, you're not kicking them up. You know, you go into others like that's their sanctuary. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. And because like for my property, we got a big tag alder swamp area that I know they're bedding in there, and part of me is like, man, do I want to put a stand up in there? But then I'm like, should I just not touch it? You know, sort of thing. Like, what's your stance on like bedding areas when it comes to stand placement?
So I have a different perspective than someone who maybe is hunting public land, where, hey, I can be more aggressive on public land because if I blow it out, well, there's another 500 acres down the road that I can try, right? So maybe in those cases you're more aggressive. But when you're talking about the land that you own, that this is the only piece you're going to hunt this year, I tend to try to stay out of those bedding areas. Okay. It can be tempting because if you go in there in the off season, there's rubs everywhere. It looks great. But I would prefer to stay just that layer back and figure out, okay, this is where they bed, but where are they leaving that bedding area? And can I get in a spot right off of that and catch them when they come in and out? I think that's going to be more huntable, more repeatedly huntable.
I just had like an idea. I think on a future episode, we'll get the video cameras out and we're going to get a marker board.
We're going to get the whiteboard going?
Let's do it. That's kind of like a coach or chalk talk. Chalk talk on there with, I'm like, okay, here's my stand location and all that. We might have to do that on a video one over there too. So let's get to, I got one more stand thing here too, because, and it's something that we touched on a little bit earlier, but it's probably that time of year too. You're getting the stands up, but probably practice shooting out of your stands right now. This is the time to do that, right?
I think it was a couple of weeks ago we talked about just starting to get some reps in, right? And shooting long distances. And now it's time to start thinking about, okay, what shots am I actually going to have when I'm out in the woods this year? And back to tree stand height, an overlooked factor there is that angle of that shot is very different than when you're standing flat in your yard. And so replicating that and understanding how that might change how you hold your bow or how, what angle you stand at is really important. So if you can get up on your deck, if you have a deck, some folks even have, like, I have an old tree stand that I throw in the backyard, and I'll stand up there and shoot out of that. Anything you can do to replicate what you might actually do in the woods, now is the time to start thinking about that and really dialing it in.
Yeah, because I think that's another, I remember as a kid growing up, we would always go in a stand, emulate that, because, first couple of years, it's like, why am I missing? And like, but I'm hitting the target when I'm standing there, going to stand, and you keep like going shooting under or even over or something like that. It's a different angle that it doesn't register right away, but when you actually think about it, it is completely different.
Yeah, you go with a golf analogy. It's like I can pound 10 drivers on the driving range. Yeah, right, and that's kind of like just shooting arrows in your backyard. But then when you actually get on the course and maybe the ball's a little below your feet, or there's a dog leg to it, or something different. That's a whole other animal, and so it's the same thing with archery.
Exactly. Ready to answer some listener questions?
Let's do it.
A big thanks to everybody who sent over these questions. We were talking a little bit about food plots earlier. So this question came in asking, how many, quote, small food plots is too much on a 50-acre area? Small as in just throw and grow plots.
These questions are, I'm going to answer in kind of generalities first, and then try to dive in specifically, because a 50-acre piece, that can look like a million different things. And what that piece looks like as far as the topography, right? As far as how much of it is wooded, how much of it is fields, what's around you for neighbors. Those are all things that are going to go in if I was actually advising a client on how many food plots to put out. So that I just want to put that disclaimer out there, because it can be all over the board. But I would say when you're talking about those little throw and go plots, you're putting those out specifically because you want to draw a deer to bow range. You're not going to put that in a place where you aren't able to put a stand.
Right.
What I would say is, as you start to put those out, if you find that a deer is going to a different plot all the time and not going back to the same place repeatedly, you probably have too many.
Okay.
Because that movement starts to become unpredictable.
Yeah.
So start with a couple, maybe on different areas of the property that you can hunt on with different wind directions, right? Give yourself some options there. And, so if I don't want to back out of the question on the guy, let's say 50 acres, maybe 3 to 4 for a starter.
Right.
I think would give him an option, or her an option, to hunt some different winds and still hunt different parts of the property.
Would you say, like, maybe have a minimum, and this kind of almost leads into the second question here a little bit, but like a minimum distance between them? Like, you don't want them planted too close to each other, try to evenly spread them out possibly.
Yeah.
And that 50, because you're right, because a 50-acre plot could look completely different from Joe Blow to, Jimmy over there too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Spacing them out, I think the big thing there is trying to give enough space between them that you're going to have a nice travel route between the two. Give yourself an opportunity to hunt off of that food plot as well. I keep harping on that, but in a lot of cases, your best stand isn't right on the attraction, right on that food source, or right in that bedding area. It's that travel route between the two.
Yeah.
And so distance, again, I don't know if I can give you an exact distance, but just trying to space it out enough that there's going to be a predictable movement between them.
And that kind of transitions into this next question. How far should you place your tree stands from one another? I don't know if you also got a 50-acre plot. This is actually a different question for somebody else, but they said, or how many should there be on a 50-acre parcel?
Sure. So ignoring all the qualifications I already put out there, 50-acre parcel, I think I would say, just rule of thumb, maybe 6 to 8.
Okay.
And in my thinking behind that would be, I don't want so many stands that I'm jumping from stand to stand and not hunting the same stand enough to give it a true chance.
Yeah.
Because if you have 20 stands out there and, you only sit 10 times in a year, you're not even getting to half your stands. And even though you do want some duality when it comes to wind, I also think you got to give a stand a chance for a day or two, right? It can't just be moving around all the time. So 6 to 8, I think, on a property like that should, again, let you hunt different wind directions, come in from different areas, and then also adjust as you start seeing deer move throughout the property.
Yeah, you kind of gives me the impression, too, if you have so many, and you mentioned it, giving it a chance here, it's like, I feel like if you have so many options, you'd be like, okay, I'm done with this one. You're just hopping around. It almost causes you mental stress trying to figure it out.
And
so
you're kind of
much.
chasing your tail, right? You
yeah.
could just be one step behind the deer every day.
Right.
And yeah, so you want enough that you don't burn out a stand, but you don't want so many that you miss opportunities.
Exactly. Another question says, best tactic or setup for getting an early bow season buck before the rut?
Yeah, well, we'll keep talking about this one too, because this will be relevant every week going forward.
Right.
But, early season, the classic one is food sources, right? You still have bucks if they're on their kind of, so to speak, summer pattern, going right from bed to food. They're in those food sources a little earlier in the evening. That's a great place to set up on a field edge. Especially if you have a field edge that there's maybe an inside corner to it, or there's kind of a lower shaded area. I think I mentioned that before, but they tend to kind of congregate to those areas. It's a little cooler. That's a classic one to set up on. But a couple other ideas, because I don't want to just give you one. Another one would be those apple trees. If you have some of those apple trees or pear trees, if you can find an early oak that's dropping acorns, that can be an awesome spot to set up in that second half of September, early October time frame. you'd be amazed how many deer seek out that first tree that starts dropping the acorns. So that's a good one. And then I would say too, if you're wanting to get a little more aggressive, maybe you have a specific buck that you're seeing on camera. He's really good. We want to try to get him before the rut happens and it's chaotic. What you can look at is if maybe he's not getting to that food source till after dark, then let's go a layer back and maybe we go 70 or 80 yards into the woods.
Okay.
So we're not right on the bedding area, but if
Right.
we know where he's bedding and we can identify that route between the two, kind of split the difference, get halfway in there. And a lot of times those bucks, it's what we call staging, but they'll kind of spend some time up on their feet before dark, but also not in that food source. That's the area that you want to hunt them in.
Gotcha. So do you feel like there's a misconceived perception a little bit, like you can't get a big buck early in the season, you got to wait for the rut? I feel like at times maybe people just kind of wait a little bit, like, oh yeah, opener's in a month, but I'm going to wait a few more weeks.
Yeah, I do. I think opening day is always a good chance because the deer don't know they've been hunted yet, and some of them are on those summer patterns. But then you get into those last couple of weeks, or that last week of September and the first week of October, and people kind of think, well, I can't shoot anything right now. All the deer are nocturnal. You hear that a lot, right?
Right, yeah.
And studies have shown that's not the case. It's just that they don't move very far in daylight. So you do need to, that's where kind of getting a layer back off of those food sources or off those food plots and getting a little tighter to their bedding areas. If you are targeting a buck, that's probably where you need to be.
Really quick, this one just popped up before I let you go here, but because of the weather we've been having and such, and you mentioned cooling that, is this why water sources, putting in water sources at stands, because you hear about that quite a bit too, is really important and vital and could be a big boost for stands and placement stands?
Yeah, we probably should have mentioned that one when we were talking about early season stand locations, because that's another great one is a water source, especially as temperatures are high.
Yeah.
Your corn's starting to tassel out and mature. The moisture is going to start going away. Yeah, water sources are huge right now. I just finished that pond that I told you about, and the cameras every day. I've got fawns and does in there and some bucks stopping through, turkeys. Everybody is visiting the water hole. So, yeah, if you have one, if you find either a natural water source or something you're able to put in, it's never a bad idea to have a stand there.
And you don't have to, it doesn't have to, when we talk about like a water source or pond, I mean, it doesn't have to be this gigantic pond, right? It can just be I've seen people go to, like, let's say Menards and get one of those plastic ponds and dig a hole and put them in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I recommend that to a lot of my clients is just go and get an 80-gallon water tank, like a cattle tank.
Yes. Yep.
And they're good heavy plastic. They don't fade from the UV or get brittle.
Yep.
Dig a hole. That's the hardest part. Digging the hole, put it in the ground, grate around it, and fill it up. You're all set to go.
Yeah. So especially, I know we just had a lot of rain, but before that it was pretty darn dry.
Yes.
So they're probably looking for those water sources too.
100%. Yep.
So, Tim, awesome stuff, man. I'm looking forward to getting into hunting season with you.
Yeah, I like it. We're going to do some X's and O's. We'll talk about what you're doing in the tree stand. We'll share some stories. It's going to be a fun fall.
Awesome. Well, hey, we appreciate it. And again, if anybody's listening and they were like, you know what, I need some help, I want to talk to Tim, how should they reach out to you?
Whitetail Partners, whitetailpartners.com. You can check out our website. Otherwise, Facebook, Instagram, you can just search Tim Kaiser Whitetail Partners, and you can find us there.
Tim, appreciate it, man. Good stuff as always. Already looking forward to our next chat.
Yeah, good to talk to you, Dan.